where do we come from?
Now, do you want to do this as a round?
Yeah, let's do it as a round. I think we've got this. Yeah, let's do it.
You're number 2. All right. So, okay.
Where do we come from?
What are we? Where are we going? Where did we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we mystery? Mystery come from mystery. What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Where are we going? Mystery. Mystery. Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Good morning. I'm Heather Norby. I am the Spiritual Life Director for this congregation, and I use the pronouns she and her. Let us just take a moment to get comfortable in our sacred space. Take a deep breath in and out. Another breath in and out. When we breathe together, we find that mysterious presence of life all around us. We can rejoice in it and welcome it into our sanctuary, this place of peace and radical love. Let us remember that joining each of our individual lives to one another honors the mystery from where we come and inspires the hope we need to build communities that revere all life as sacred. Today, during our time together, we will expand our thinking and discover more of what we can do in this world. In order to build this community, we need love plus connection, and that will lead to spiritual and ethical transformation. This is your community, and so we ask that you please be an active part of it by joining us in some of the following activities and events. On September 1st, that's next week, we will have a social justice meeting at 1 p.m., and then at 2 p.m., members from the Red Tent Initiative Board will be joining us and will be planning the Raven Dinner Theater, which we already kind of have an idea of what we want to do, but we're going to need help probably with food and setting up, and we might need some performers. We're going to do little vignettes of classic monsters, and then we're going to serve food to go along with each one. So please join us on September 1st to plan all of that fun stuff. And of course, the Raven Dinner Theater is October 19th, Saturday, October 19th, right here in the sanctuary. Wednesday, September 4th, is worship committee meeting at 5 p.m., and I will already be here, so it can be in person, but if you can't join in person, then I can turn on Zoom and you can join via Zoom. And then at 6:30 p.m., I will be restarting dinner worship, so come and join us for dinner worship. We talk about the theme for the month, which in September is the practice of invitation. And so you are invited to come to dinner worship. I will make a big pot of rice, and you can bring a topping to go on top of it. And we will have some good community building time. Water communion is in 2 weeks on September 8th. This is an annual ceremony that we as Unitarian Universalists do. It's about coming together. Everybody brings in water from a special place. It can be a lake, a river, the ocean. It can be your kitchen sink or your pet's food bowl. Someplace special for you, someplace that since our theme is invitation, let's say someplace that seems inviting to you. Bring some water in, and we share during this ceremony and put our water together in a bowl and build community. And then, there's a lot of announcements today. We have a lot going on. We have an ice cream brainstorming party on Friday the 13th, Friday, September 13th, so Freaky Friday. And we'll be coming up with ideas for worship. I put the themes up. I asked for music ideas and quotes and images and colors and anything that you can come up with and that helps to enhance our worship and programming. There's going to be a town hall on September 15th after worship service. Please check your newsletter tomorrow for more information about that. Ken will be sending something to the newsletter. And music practice is most every Saturday at 4 p.m., so please join us Saturdays at 4 p.m. here in the sanctuary if you would like to do music with us. And you don't really even...
need new members in the choir and the band up here.
We always need new members in the choir. There's no tryouts. There's no you have to be good at it. Just come and join us. We do. And I'll be starting a new group that will meet on the fourth Wednesday night of every month. And it's called Creativity Matters. This is a part of the Soul Matters program. And it's a little bit like the small groups where you get a packet at the beginning of the month, and there's different creative activities within the packet that relate to our theme, September, the practice of invitation, that you can engage in, and then we come together on that Wednesday night and we share and talk and go deep. So if you're interested in that, please check your newsletter, and I will put the packet attached to the newsletter so that you can look at it, print it out and whatnot, and start engaging in that. Okay, I think that's it. All right, thank you, and I will let Petra read our opening words and get our chalice lit.
Good morning. I am Petra. I'm the worship associate for today. Our opening words today were written by Matthew Johnson. For 5,000 years or more is the title. For 5,000 years or more than 15,000 generations, human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours have gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in the cosmos, and they have spoken aloud and invited what they conceived as sacred and powerful to be with them. They called upon the spirits of the air and earth, fire and water. They called the bear and deer. They asked for the raven to protect them. They pleaded for the heroes of old to slay the monsters of their fears. They sang songs they learned from their grandparents and moved in the appointed ways, or in ways that were new but felt like the right thing to do. And they imputed power to these spirits and to the memories of these heroes. They called them gods, and they were invoked. Vishnu and Kali, Elohim. No, you need to go away. Thank you very much. Elohim, Odin, and 100 million others. Every group of people everywhere. They gathered to make sense of their lives and to make sense of their place in the cosmos. And they called these spirits to be present to them. And so do we. So do we. We gather this morning to make sense of ourselves and this universe in which we live as best we are able. And we call ourselves to worship together and we invoke the power and wonder of life itself, that to which all those spirits of animals and memories of heroes pointed the way. We invoke that power, which is, we know, always around, always with us, but which we sometimes forget about. We forget that we are part of the whole creation. We forget that we are stardust. We forget that we're capable of miracles, first among them, that we can love. We forget these things. So we invoke the power of existence so that we can remember. So we can lift our eyes and open our ears to the true and beautiful. For 5,000 years or more, we have done this. In many tongues, in many ways, we have done this. And so we continue that ancient tradition in our way and in our time. And so let us now worship together and create our sacred space by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Sayana, would you please do us the honor of lighting our chalice? Now would you all please rise in body or spirit, and we're going to sing hymn number 362, Rise Up, O Flame. Rise up, O flame, thy glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, thy glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. And now we will have the message for all ages.
The message for all ages. All right. Oh, good. The young at heart are coming up. Ooh, I love your shirt, Jerry. That's perfect for today. Be curious, not judgmental, it says. All right. Okay. Well, come on. Some real kids too. Come on up. Come on up, because I'm hoping you're going to help me think a little bit today. No? They're like, it's Sunday morning. We are not thinking. All right. I have some pictures I want to show you. And I'm just going to ask you a question. Okay, now hold on. In your head quietly, just look at the picture. What do you see? What do you really? Shh. In your head quietly. Means don't say it out loud yet. What's going on in this picture? It's blurry. Thank you, Tim. Okay. What do you see in this picture? Fish? That's kind of what stands out to you in this picture, fish? Fish. There's a snail. Yeah? You like the frog?
Four ferns.
What do you see as like the main subject of this picture?
Water.
Ocean, water.
Fish tank.
Yeah.
I'm young at heart too.
Okay, so I like this thinking because here's what happened. Some researchers did an experiment and they were looking at different people that are involved in business, that get involved in international business where they have to work with different cultures. And so they asked people, Americans and Japanese, mostly what's going on in this picture. And the Americans really focused on the fish. Whereas the Japanese were like, focusing on the environment. Why do you think that might be? The whole environment. And some of you said ocean, right? Tank. Right, yeah. Yeah. So what they found is there's a difference in thinking that comes from their cultural worldview, which of course is related to their theological worldview, right? Which is sort of this holistic way of thinking, right? So the Japanese were thinking holistically and seeing the whole thing because it's interconnected, whereas Americans more focused on sort of the independent agent in the picture and what they can eat. Okay. Added by Petra. Okay. So next picture. Let's see what we come up with here. What's happening here? Goldfish.
Just one fish swimming away from the others,
One fish.
scared of what they might do.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
One fish is being jumped.
Right, right. So,
Or it's the teacher.
But if that one's eating, and then that one up behind it is sort of swimming off in a different direction.
He might be he's a little.
They're fixing on him.
yeah. Now, are any of you right?
Maybe.
Are any of you wrong?
No.
Okay, good, good. So what they found when they introduced this to a group of Americans and a group of Chinese was that the Americans mostly said the fish in the front was leading, whereas the Chinese looked at the whole thing and said, no, it's being chased. Interesting, right? Okay. One more picture, one more question. Okay, see that flower on the bottom?
No.
Okay, which group would you put it? This is like Sesame Street, right?
Group 1.
Something like that. Which one would you put it in? Group 1 or group 2? All right, who says group 1? Raise your hand. Yeah, who says group 2? Yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay, so what, again, if you're thinking that the target object, the flower, fit into group 1, you might be thinking more holistically. If you think it fits into group 2, you might be thinking more independently, as in you're just looking at what the one thing that it has in common, which is the straight stem, right? But group 1, there's more. They're not all the same, but they do have some similar traits, and as a group, holistically, they fit together. Okay, so that's what the researchers say. Now, are any of you right?
Yes.
Are any of you wrong? So then what happens if, like, we're trying to solve a problem together? Should I just ask one of you, the group that thinks one way? No. Why would I do that? Are we going to solve a problem better on our own with one way of thinking, or are we going to solve a problem better when we have different kinds of thinkers thinking together? Yeah. What's that? We got to agree somewhere, but sometimes it's not one or the other. It's kind of like a created, synthesized sort of idea. Yeah? Yeah.
The key to opposing ideas is not that you're fighting about them. The key to opposing ideas is that you can
Meld them.
yes,
Take the best of each one. Take what makes more sense.
work together, have some back and forth of,
Right. So when you disagree with somebody, should you start fighting with them?
No.
No.
Come
You gotta
together as one.
come together as one. Thank you. Look for the similar. Build some bridges. All right, we did. Are you all going out? Yes. Okay. Well, you are welcome to put a stone into the water before you go out, and we're gonna sing that song. 413. Oh, 413. Yeah. Some of you don't recognize it.
Huh?
4:13. Go now in peace.
I thought we were.
This is for the kids going out.
Let's give them the children.
Our ritual of the sharing of joys, concerns, and sorrows embodies a belief that there is power in being together and in holding one another in the significant, the precious, the hard, and the joyful moments of our lives. In our Joys and Sorrows book, you are able to write any significant joy or sorrow occurring in your life that you would like for the congregation to know. It sits on the table at the entrance of the sanctuary before you come in, and I read from it before we take the time to participate in our weekly ritual of placing pebbles in the bowl. Ah, there it is. It has arrived. Thank you. Today, August 25th. Thank you, Ken Schmidt, for repairing the lights in here. Thank you. Crystal says that she had a joyous time at a mountain retreat, yoga and hiking. Awesome. Welcome back. She needed to refresh herself. She's been working hard around here too. Thank you. So I invite you now to come forward and place a colored stone representing your joys, concerns, and sorrows into the water. Each stone that we drop into the water represents a different thing that you may need in the midst of this moment. You may take whichever stone or stones feels right to you and drop it in, connecting to others, feeling the power of being together here in this community. have one person on Zoom. If you could please put a pebble in for them. Thank you.
Here we gather, tucked back in this friendly neighborhood between the beautiful tall pines. We are a community of people who have arrived from many different paths, yet we seek a common goal: to bring more love to a hurting but beautiful world. We do this through the relationships we build and the gratitude we express with our time, talent, and treasure. Centered in love, we can renew and transform this world spiritually and ethically towards joy for all. Our ushers will now pass the plate so that we may live into our value of equity, which states in the new wording of Article 2, we declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
Thank you so much. You are all a blessing to this community. Let us take a moment to center ourselves and contemplate that which we are exploring this month, our Unitarian Universalist sources of wisdom and inspiration, of which there are many. Get comfortable, close your eyes, breathe gently. Center yourself in what you perceive to be the source of life. What is it? Who is it? What do you call it? Where does it exist? How does it feel? And has this changed at all for you this month? As Unitarian Universalists, we don't tell you where you have to get your spiritual inspiration from. We do not have one sacred text. Since 1985, we have had 6 sources of wisdom and inspiration listed in the front of our gray and teal hymnals. In fact, the teal hymnal is organized around these 6 sources. However, the vote in June at the UUA's General Assembly changed and refreshed this wording. The new Article 2 wording states our sources of inspiration as such. Direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources of Unitarian Universalist inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. We respect the histories, context, and cultures in which these sources were created and are currently practiced. Grateful for the experiences that move us, aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. Today, we will continue exploring more of the theological diversity that enriches our faith as we encounter Animism, Pantheism, and Pantheism. Petra, I invite you up to share with us.
As members of a church of Unitarian Universalism, I suppose we must expect at least alternative isms. While traveling this path of alternative isms with Heather this month, we are focusing this week on pantheism, panentheism, and animism. Pantheism is defined by UUA as God and the universe are identical. This is a good, solid ring to it for me. It infers that all things in the universe are imbued with a godliness. I'm inclined to agree, especially in regard to all things sentient. I believe when we are truly connected to the energy and life force of the universe, we are tapped into the power and strength responsible for all of creation. While I'm okay calling that power God, I would be most likely to call it source. Of course, right under the definition of pantheism was panentheism. God and the universe are identical, and God is also supernatural. Okay, I'll go with pantheism over panentheism, I guess. On to animism. From Leader Resource 1, Soul Statements in the UUA Library, some animists say that not just animals, but plants and objects like stones have souls. This is a belief held by many pagans and most indigenous tribes, be they North American or African. Well, that does resonate with me because, for me, that soul is the connection to Source. We are all one, and that certainly includes all carbon-based life forms, all of which I believe to be sentient. So this pretty much combines pantheism and animism for me. I once said here at UUCL that I had been looking for my tribe. Well, after going down some of the rabbit holes, I still find there does not appear to be one tribe to which I can declare my alliance.
Wow. I stand before you to deliver some good news from Unitarian Universalism. You don't have to think alike to love alike. And you don't have to think alike in order to be in the same tribe either. Welcome to our tribe. She's been here quite a while. All you really need to do is to hold love at the center and let it radiate out through the way you live your values, and chances are you'll find a pretty terrific tribe. One with a diversity of beliefs, worldviews, problem-solving techniques, and an array of answers to the big questions. This tribe is not an echo chamber in which everyone believes the same thing, although it is comforting to be with people who think like you. This is a tribe with a whole bunch of quirky individuals that you can learn much from. And more good news is that we have that right here in this small and delightful and quirky Unitarian Universalist community. That's us. There are many things about which we see eye to eye, and there are many things which we don't so much agree on. But our mission is to model how love connects us and bridges our divides so that we can bring about transformation to the broken and disconnected parts of our web of life. Former President Jimmy Carter once said of America, "We have become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hopes, different dreams." And such a thing is beautiful indeed. Our differences can be exciting if we can embrace it as such. The unfortunate news is that not everyone in this country sees diversity as a beautiful mosaic. And those voices are really loud right now, making it hard for any of us to honor and embrace our differences. We hear politicians like Missouri Senator Josh Hawley exclaim, "Some will say that I'm advocating Christian nationalism. So I do. My question is there any other kind worth having? Is there any other kind worth having? Does he mean that it's not worth having a variety of different theological perspectives, worldviews, and life experiences to learn from? Yes, indeed. That's what he means. That is what Christian nationalists are after. Not to learn from our differences, but to gain power over those who are different, forcing them into some sort of imagined uniformity that completely goes against our actual divine reality of a diverse and complex world. This is not only a simple-minded and boring desire, it is one born out of fear and faulty theology. And it is dangerous. Of course, we know this because we've seen how this sort of thinking manifests into fascist regimes, death camps, and wars throughout history. And we've seen how this has a tendency to perpetuate cycles of violence, revenge, and injustice. These cycles are meant to tear us down, wear us down, and turn us into weary travelers of this earth so that we are easy to control. And it's really sad that some people find that kind of power to be so attractive. But alas, my weary travelers, there is much hope in being together here in the sanctuary, where in our togetherness we can decide to not let violence and injustice win. I think you know that, and that's why you are here. This is a safe place to rest your weary soul, and it is a place to rejuvenate your body, mind, and spirit. That happens through your connections with others, through the strength you find in our differences, and in the love we all have for one another. Our evolutionary history has predisposed us to the need for connection, for it is through supporting one another in this web of life that we are energized, that we thrive, and that a true and shared power can manifest. And so we arrive here each Sunday morning for more of that good, energizing stuff we receive. This is an important theological understanding in Unitarian Universalism. Everything is relationship. We are in relationship to everything and everyone around us. That's the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. Through healthy, loving relationships, we thrive. And that means that we have to learn and acquire new skills for exactly how to engage our differences and create from them. Engaging in this way of being together plants us in an active hope that washes away our weariness, grows our wisdom, and allows for us to go back out into the world and make it better. So for the past couple weeks, I've introduced you to two frameworks for understanding the world, the universe, and the answers to the big questions about God, where we come from, what we are, and how values from these frameworks can shape where we might go. I've given you glimpses into the overlapping and not completely dissimilar frameworks and principles of humanism and religious naturalism. Your non-judgmental curiosity about these different ways of thinking speaks volumes about who you are. You respect different ways of thinking, and you value the wisdom of others. There is so much hope in that way of being. Thank you. And so my goal really in all of this is not to label anyone. It's to offer you insight into different ways of thinking about God, the world, and the universe so that you can both enrich your theology and have a better understanding of what's out there in order to appreciate others and their diverse ways of thinking. You don't have to agree with any of it, but it can at least reshape your understanding of what a religious community can be. And that right there is how we plant the seeds of transformation in order to grow and nurture a more loving and pluralistic society. As Americans, we commonly recognize a church or a mosque or a Jewish temple to be a place that one goes to worship God, or Allah if you are Muslim, and Adonai is the title the rabbi asked me to use when referring to the Jewish God. This God, in the Abrahamic religions, in classical theism, is separate from us and from the world. We call that dualism. This is a transcendent God, a creator God, and he exists out there. God is a supernatural entity. The frameworks I've been presenting to you this month do not incorporate dualistic thinking. Rather, they are what we call monistic, and they directly oppose the idea of the existence of a God who is separate from the world. Rather, they embrace all that exists as a part of one whole, as nature and or as divine. Of course, that doesn't mean that things don't get a little complicated with what we are going to get a small glimpse of today: pantheism, panentheism, and animism. As I've explained each Sunday, we don't have the time here to go down all the various paths of thinking of each one of these frameworks. We will cover only the basics. But you will find that each one of these frameworks I am offering has something to offer Unitarian Universalism. Not one of them is dogmatic, and they are all concerned, with the exception of humanism, with the immanence of God, meaning the condition of being entirely within something, as in God is right here with us and the world. So let us center ourselves in today's exploration by singing a favorite hymn of ours in the Teal hymnal. It's number 1001. It's called Breaths. This hymn asks us to do something we may not often do, or at least do something that is outside what is taught in classic theism, and thus our westernized culture, and that is to listen to things rather than beings. Feel free to stand up and move and stretch and sing with me. So what if everything contains spirits? What if the voices of our ancestors were all around us? how would you approach the world then? Animism, in its most basic form, is a perspective that holds that all things, including animals, plants, rocks, weather systems, and human creations, have a spiritual essence and are animated. Animists believe that these things have agency and free will, and that they can form social relationships with non-human beings. The word animism comes from the Latin word anima, which means life or soul. Animism is not one religion or way of thinking. Animism is an integral part of the lives of the many different indigenous peoples around the world. Anthropologists have recognized animism as a guiding worldview among people since hunter-gatherer societies began to form. For many years, anthropologists perceived animism as a rudimentary theology, or something lower on the hierarchy of world religions than something like classic theism. Anthropologists in more recent years have worked hard to dismantle that idea, as they have uncovered the complexities and idiosyncrasies of animistic worldviews around the world and throughout time. As I said, animism is not one kind of religion. Rather, it's a way of relating to the world. If I were an animist, I wouldn't find and ascribe to one particular animistic culture's way of thinking, customs, or performing rituals just so I could be an animist. Animism within indigenous tribes is deeply intertwined with culture and geographical location. And thus, unless you are actually from a particular culture and place, that particular form of animism and how it operates within your daily life would not make sense to you and could not be fully realized and authentically lived. That does not mean that we cannot believe that rocks and trees and such can have spirits. That does not mean that we can't learn from the deep wisdom of those peoples who live in animistic cultures and to incorporate that wisdom into our personal worldviews and ways of relating to the world. For example, from an animist perspective, since everything has a soul, human beings are not superior to anything else in the universe. And thus, animists are careful and respectful when using natural resources, lest they make the spirits unhappy. This is a perspective that we would be wise to consider. Animism, according to anthropologist Catherine Swancutt, is really more a sensibility, tendency, or style of engaging with the world and the beings or things that populate it. It is not a form of materialism, which posits that only matter, materials, and movement exist. And it is not a form of polytheism that posits many gods. Instead, to an animistic person or social group, sentience is often envisioned as a vital force, life force, or animated property that is immanent, accessible, and ready to hand in the everyday world. Listen more often to things than to beings. That seems like a sensibility inspired by animistic worldviews, doesn't it? That things are ready to have a hand in the everyday world if only we would just listen. Even if we don't believe that things have a spirit and are animated, we can still listen by observing and understanding each thing's place within nature, what that thing's purpose is, and how we can honor it. And so we turn to pantheism. Approaching the hymn from a pantheist worldview, we could understand ancestors' breath as a metaphor, for everything is just matter and atoms reused and repurposed since the beginning of time, so sure, the rocks and trees and grasses and fire may contain atoms that were once an ancestors. Pantheism. Pan means all or everything. Theism means God or divine. And even, as Wikipedia states, there are numerous definitions of pantheism, including but not limited to, that it is a theological and philosophical position which identifies God with the universe, or regards the universe as a manifestation of God. Or it's the belief that everything is part of an all-encompassing immanent God, and that all forms of reality may then be considered either modes of that being or identical with it. Or it's a non-religious philosophical position maintaining that the universe and God are identical. Pantheism is actually quite similar to religious naturalism, which we talked about last week, just with some subtle differences as far as I can tell so far. Now, panentheism, say that 3 times fast. Panentheism, as explained by an Australian researcher of religion and theology, whose name is Raphael Lattister, is a form of divine monism. Remember, monism is a contrast to dualism, that has been popular throughout history. He writes, we consider panentheism to be a type of pantheistic model of the divine. Etymologically, panentheism means all is in God, which implies that the world is a part of the divine reality, but does not comprise all of it. In panentheism, while the world is divine, there is more to the deity than the world. By way of analogy, the world in panentheism could be considered the left arm of the divine. This indicates a compromise between pantheism and the historically great models of theism. He continues, while the world is divine and not wholly other, there is indeed more to the deity than the world. Panentheism, then, seems to me like it has an element of immanence and transcendence. It is here and it is also somewhere else, but connected. I appreciate the panentheistic framework for those of you who say, yeah, I get pantheism and religious naturalism, and that I can see that we are all one, all a part of the whole that is the universe, everything is divine, but I still believe that it had to start somewhere with something that I perceive as God. Panentheism might provide a workable framework for you. Now, I started asking my mother when I was 4 years old, Mom, I drove her crazy, I think. You think she would have sent me to seminary earlier. Mom, if God created us, who created God? If panentheism is the true reality, I still want to know that. But alas, there are no answers. There are no answers to these big questions. Some say it's futile to even ponder it. I disagree. For one thing, I consider the pondering of the great mystery to be spiritual play. Play, especially play on a deep spiritual level, whether by ourselves or with others, is so important. It is joyful, and it refreshes and energizes us. To ponder the mystery and to solve the biggest riddle of all, which we won't ever, but to pretend that we are doing so, can all be a delightful adventure. But here's where it goes awry. When we stop perceiving it as a mystery and start to think that we have the answer, that's when we stop playing and we start fighting. But no one has the answer. And that's a beautiful thing, because the riddle and the mystery then is the ground of all being from which our diversity flows. If we knew where we came from and what our purpose was exactly, and where we go when we die, then we wouldn't have such a rich diversity of worldviews. Our worldviews shape how we approach the world and how we solve problems. What we believe or not about God is integral to our worldviews. All theology has been constructed from the ways different human beings have experienced the world, and all theology comes with a set of values, whether explicitly stated or not. Some people accept other people's constructs as the truth, and some of us are more determined to construct our own, based on our own experiences. And of course, theological acceptance and construction is a spectrum on which we all fall in different places. But it's important to know what other sorts of theologies are out there, which ones fit into our experience of the world and how they shape our values. It is important to stay flexible in our thoughts and perspectives, knowing that no one has the answer, but knowing that together we can solve problems better than we can with one single-minded way of approaching the world. Harvard professor of comparative religion, Diana Eck, says, "Diversity is simply a fact, but pluralism is a creation, an ethic of dealing with diversity." In Unitarian Universalism, we embrace this ethic. Pluralism is one of our shared values in our new Article 2 statement, and it reads, "We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect." There are many paths in pantheism, panentheism, animism, humanism, and religious naturalism too. Unitarian Universalism brings these paths and more together. The root meaning of the word religion is to bind. Here in Unitarian Universalism, we bind together not because we think the same, but precisely because we don't. And we recognize diversity as a gift endowed upon us by the great mystery of the universe. When we honor that gift, we become stronger through our combined intelligence, perceptions, intuitions, and curiosities. We can gather courage, empathy, more love, and more hope. Pluralism is what we do with our sacred diversity, and it can be powerful, way more powerful than powering over and controlling others. And so I will leave you with these questions today. What will we create together? What impossible problems can we solve? Thank you.
Our closing words today are by Barbara A. Brannan, entitled "One Light Through Many Windows." One light through many windows in different colors shines. One flame from many candles burns bright within our minds. One life to give us is given. Its seconds ours to none. Its seconds ours to spend. How manifold its living and infinite its ends. One God with many faces, we meet on many roads, who dwells in holy places and lives in low abodes. One earth with many nations must share a common sun, a world of celebrations, a universe at one. One song with many voices now rises from our hearts, and from our separate choices, one chorus, many parts. One light through many windows in different colors shines. One flame from many candles burns bright within our minds. We are going to sing a new hymn today. Our closing hymn is entitled "Deep Beginning." Heather, would you like to explain how this is going to work?
Okay, this is a new one and it's a little different. We've been working on it. So there's a chorus, and those words are written in the order of service, and up there. Yay! Thank you, Jason. And so that's going to be your part. And then the rest of us are going to work out the verses. Please have some grace. Thank you. We got this, yeah? So we'll do the chorus once through, we'll sing it, and then you can join us.
Okay, so it goes like this.
Okay.
Born in deep beginnings, we will live in the wide knowing. We will pass into great loving when our work here is done.
Okay, do we want to sing that one more time through? Okay, we'll do that one more time. Now, when we start to speed up, that means we're just going to sing. But then when we slow down again, you're going to sing that again. Okay? Okay.
We were born
a great beginning. We will live in the wide knowing. We will pass into great loving. When our work here is done.
All right. Sherry, would you mind extinguishing our chalice for us while we say the words on the screens there? We
Extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth,
the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment,